Welcome to Crime Bedtime, your go-to channel for chilling, true crime bedtime stories. So snuggle up, close your eyes, and let the stories unfold. Today we will be talking about the Boston Strangler. In the early 1960s, Boston was a city rich in history and intellectual vigor, yet it was also a place of significant social change and tension. The post-war economic boom brought prosperity, but it also led to rising crime rates and social unrest. The civil rights movement was gaining momentum, challenging long-standing racial inequalities, while the nascent feminist movement began questioning traditional gender roles. Boston, with its blend of historical charm and modern urban development, was at the epicenter of these shifts. This backdrop of social change and unrest set the stage for the fear that the Boston Strangler would bring. The Strangler's activities added a layer of anxiety to an already tense environment, leaving the city on edge and its residents desperate for answers. The fear began on a warm June evening in 1962. Anna Slezers, a 55-year-old seamstress living in the Back Bay neighborhood, was preparing for a quiet night at home. Little did she know, a nightmare was about to unfold. Her son arrived to find a scene straight out of a horror film. Anna's lifeless body was sprawled in the hallway of her apartment, indicating she had been the victim of a violent attack. This was the first documented crime attributed to the Boston Strangler, marking the beginning of a series of incidents that would terrify the city. Just 2 weeks later, on June 28th, 85-year-old Mary Mullen was found dead in her Roxbury home. Initially thought to have died from natural causes, later investigations raised suspicions that she might have been another victim of the Strangler. 2 days after Mullen's death, on June 30th, a double tragedy struck the city. Nina Nichols, a 68-year-old physiotherapist, was found in her Brighton apartment. Her home had been ransacked, signaling a possible robbery. Mere hours later, Helen Blake, a 65-year-old retiree, was found in her Dorchester apartment, both having been victims of violent attacks. The brutality of these crimes shocked Boston. The summer of fear continued as the Strangler's spree extended into the fall. On August 19th, 75-year-old Ida Erger was found in her Beacon Hill apartment. 2 days later, Jane Sullivan, a 67-year-old nurse, was found in her Dorchester home. These incidents intensified the fear among Boston's residents, particularly those living alone. The pattern continued into the winter. On December 5th, 20-year-old Sophie Clark, a young student, was found in her Back Bay apartment. Her case marked a significant deviation in the Strangler's typical victim profile. Less than a month later, on December 31st, 23-year-old Patricia Bissett was found in her apartment, further solidifying the Strangler's unpredictable and ruthless nature. The new year brought no relief. On March 6, 1963, 69-year-old Mary Brown was found in her Lawrence home. 2 months later, on May 8th, 23-year-old Beverly Salmons was discovered in her Cambridge apartment, having been the victim of another violent attack. The intensity of the crimes was increasing, and the city was desperate for answers. The summer of 1963 saw the attack on 58-year-old Evelyn Corbin in her Salem apartment on September 8th. The pattern was clear, but the attacker remained elusive. The Strangler's final confirmed victim was 19-year-old Mary Sullivan, found in her Beacon Hill apartment on January 4th, 1964. With Sullivan's case, the city had reached a breaking point. The Boston Strangler's modus operandi was both methodical and chillingly consistent. He often gained entry to his victims' homes by posing as a maintenance worker, delivery person, or some other benign figure, exploiting the trust and vulnerability of individuals living alone. Once inside, he would overpower them, using their own belongings to commit the crimes. The use of items from the victims' homes was a hallmark of his crimes, indicating a deeply personal and degrading motive. The crime scenes often showed signs of a struggle. The meticulous manner in which the scenes were arranged suggested a need to dehumanize and dominate. Some locations showed signs of theft, suggesting that financial or psychological motives related to stealing may have played a role. Unlike other notorious attackers, the Boston Strangler did not engage in direct communication with the media or police. Instead, his taunting was implicit, found in the meticulous and deliberate manner in which he left the crime scenes, presenting recurring themes that seemed to challenge investigators. On June 14, 1962, Anna Slezes was preparing for a quiet evening at home when she became the first documented victim of the Boston Strangler. Her son discovered her body, initiating a wave of terror that would grip the city. Just 2 weeks later, Mary Mullen was found dead in her home. Though initially thought to have died from natural causes, further scrutiny raised suspicions about her death. On June 30th, a double murder shocked the city. Mina Nichols and Helen Blake were found in their respective homes, both having been brutally attacked. The fear did not abate with the summer's end. On August 19th, Ida Eger was found in her Beacon Hill apartment, her death reinforcing the chilling pattern of the Strangler's attacks. 2 days later, Jane Sullivan was found in her Dorchester home, having been attacked in her bathtub. On December 5th, the Strangler deviated from his typical pattern by targeting Sophie Clark, a young student. Her murder marked a significant shift, spreading fear among younger women. The year ended with the death of Patricia Bissett on December 31st, her murder underscoring the Strangler's unpredictable nature. The new year brought no respite. On March 6, 1963, Mary Brown was found dead in her Lawrence home, her attack suggesting that the Strangler was expanding his territory. On May 8th, Beverly Salmons was found in her Cambridge apartment, the intensity of the crime shocking even seasoned investigators. The summer saw another attack, this time on Evelyn Corbin in her Salem apartment on September 8th. The geographical spread of the attack suggested the Strangler's mobility. On November 23rd, Joan Graff was found in her Lawrence apartment, her murder highlighting the ongoing danger. The final confirmed victim was Mary Sullivan, found in her Beacon Hill apartment on January 4th, 1964. Her case marked the end of the known spree, but left the city grappling with the lasting impact of the Strangler's terror. The investigation into the Boston Strangler case was one of the most extensive and challenging in the city's history. The investigation was spearheaded by the Boston Police Department, with assistance from the Massachusetts State Police and the FBI. Key figures included John F. Collins, the mayor of Boston, and Edward Brooke, the Massachusetts Attorney General, who both faced intense public pressure to capture the attacker. The primary challenges faced by investigators included the lack of physical evidence at many crime scenes, the varying victim profiles, and the psychological complexity of the Strangler. The crime scenes were often contaminated by neighbors and media before forensic teams could arrive, complicating efforts to gather reliable evidence. The varying ages and backgrounds of the victims also made it difficult to establish a clear pattern or motive, adding to the complexity of the case. Albert DeSalvo, a factory worker and convicted criminal, came into the spotlight when he confessed to being the Boston Strangler. DeSalvo's confession was detailed and matched many aspects of the crimes, leading many to believe he was indeed the attacker. His detailed recollections of the crime scenes and the methods used seemed to provide the answers the city had been desperately seeking. However, DeSalvo's confession was also riddled with inconsistencies. Some details he provided did not match the known facts of certain attacks, and there was no physical evidence directly linking him to the crimes. Furthermore, DeSalvo was known to be a compulsive confessor, having previously admitted to crimes he did not commit. This cast doubt on the reliability of his admissions. The controversy surrounding DeSalvo's confession remains a significant aspect of the Boston Strangler case. While he confessed to the attacks and was convicted of unrelated crimes, there was always skepticism about his involvement in all the Strangler's crimes. The lack of physical evidence, coupled with the inconsistencies in his confession, fueled speculation that the real Boston Strangler might still be at large. Many experts and investigators have posited that there could have been multiple perpetrators, each with a similar modus operandi, which could explain the variations in the crimes. The possibility of multiple attackers added another layer of complexity to an already convoluted case, leaving many questions unanswered. In recent years, advances in forensic science, particularly DNA analysis, have brought new hope to solving the case definitively. In 2013, DNA evidence linked DeSalvo to one of the cases, providing some closure but also raising new questions about the extent of his involvement in the other attacks. The debate over whether DeSalvo was the sole perpetrator or part of a larger group continues, keeping the mystery of the Boston Strangler alive in the annals of criminal history. As the city of Boston grappled with the horrors of the Boston Strangler, the media became both a chronicler of events and a catalyst for action. The early reports of Anna Sleaze's tragic end were covered in local newspapers, but as the body count increased, so did the intensity and reach of the coverage. Headlines screamed from newsstands, and evening news broadcasts began with the latest updates on the Strangler's rampage. Television news was becoming an influential medium, and it brought the fear directly into people's living rooms. Families huddled around their TV sets, watching in shock as reporters detailed the latest attacks. The graphic descriptions and the sense of urgency conveyed by the media created a palpable atmosphere of dread. The constant flow of information kept the public on edge, each new report a reminder of the unseen menace lurking in their midst. The media's portrayal of the Strangler as an omnipresent, almost mythical figure added to the public's fear. Journalists often speculated about the killer's next move, his identity, and his motives. This speculation, combined with the detailed crime reports, fueled the public's anxiety and desperation for safety. Yet the media also served as a crucial conduit for information, relaying police appeals for tips and witness accounts, effectively mobilizing the public in the hunt for the killer. The wave of fear that swept through Boston changed the city's fabric in profound ways. As news of each new murder spread, the sense of safety that residents had once taken for granted was shattered. Women, in particular, felt the impact deeply. The realization that the Strangler could be anywhere and strike at any time led to widespread changes in daily routines. Women began to adopt new safety measures. Doors and windows were fortified with extra locks, and many purchased self-defense items. Social interactions changed. Evening strolls and solitary outings became rare. Neighbors formed informal watch groups, taking turns to patrol their streets and keep an eye out for anything suspicious. The community's vigilance was a double-edged sword. While it helped heighten security, it also bred suspicion and mistrust. The public's heightened sense of vulnerability led to an increase in calls to the police. Every odd noise or unfamiliar face was reported, overwhelming the authorities but also demonstrating the collective anxiety gripping the city. This environment of fear and heightened alertness pervaded every aspect of life in Boston, fundamentally altering how people lived, interacted, and perceived their surroundings. The Boston Strangler's reign of terror had a lasting impact on the community and law enforcement practices. The brutality and randomness of the crimes forced a re-evaluation of police methods and community safety strategies. Neighborhoods became more tightly knit as residents banded together to protect each other. Community meetings became commonplace, where safety strategies were discussed and information was shared. This collective approach to security fostered a sense of solidarity among residents, who realized that their safety depended on mutual cooperation and vigilance. For the police, the Strangler case was a harsh wake-up call. The investigation exposed significant gaps in forensic capabilities and interagency communication. The Boston Police Department, along with state and federal agencies, had to innovate and adapt. They started to emphasize better crime scene management and evidence preservation. The need for specialized training became evident, leading to the formation of dedicated units focused on handling specific types of crimes. The case also underscored the importance of collaboration between different law enforcement bodies. Improved communication and coordination became key priorities, ensuring that information was shared promptly and efficiently. This shift not only helped in dealing with the immediate crisis, but also laid the groundwork for more effective policing strategies in the future. The Boston Strangler case remains a source of controversy and speculation, partly due to the forensic limitations of the time. In the early 1960s, forensic science was in its infancy. Techniques such as DNA profiling were decades away from being developed. This meant that investigators had to rely on less precise methods, such as fingerprint analysis and eyewitness testimonies, which were often unreliable. Many crime scenes were inadvertently compromised by the media and onlookers, leading to contaminated evidence. This lack of clear, uncontaminated evidence made it challenging to build a concrete case against any suspect. Additionally, the confession of Albert DeSalvo, the man who later claimed to be the Strangler, was inconsistent and lacked the corroborative physical evidence needed to definitively link him to all the murders. His confession, while detailed, included inaccuracies and elements that did not match known facts about the crimes. In recent years, advancements in forensic technology have rekindled efforts to solve the Boston Strangler case. DNA analysis has become a pivotal tool in re-examining old evidence. One significant breakthrough occurred in 2013, when DNA evidence linked DeSalvo to the murder of Mary Sullivan, one of the Strangler's last known victims. This finding provided a degree of closure, but also opened new questions about the extent of DeSalvo's involvement in the other murders. Modern investigative techniques include reanalyzing evidence with advanced forensic methods, conducting detailed psychological profiling, and using sophisticated computer algorithms to identify patterns that may have been missed. These efforts aim to uncover new insights and potentially identify additional suspects. The re-examination of cold cases using modern technology continues to hold promise for resolving some of the enduring mysteries surrounding the Strangler. Understanding the motives and psychological profile of the Boston Strangler has been a subject of extensive analysis. Experts suggest that the Strangler might have had a deep-seated psychological disorder, possibly rooted in early trauma or significant psychological issues. The brutality and specific nature of the crimes indicate a need for control and dominance. The Strangler's methods, gaining entry by posing as a benign figure, using the victim's belongings, and the nature of the assaults suggest a complex psychological makeup. The meticulous manner in which the scenes were arranged points to a perpetrator who derived gratification from both the act and the aftermath, possibly reflecting profound anger and resentment towards women. The lack of direct communication with the media and the public implies a different kind of psychological satisfaction. Unlike other notorious serial offenders who sought fame, the Strangler's implicit taunting through the crime scene suggests a more internalized form of gratification, where the act itself and the terror it instilled were the primary rewards. Anna Slezers, a 55-year-old seamstress, lived a quiet life in Boston's Back Bay. Known for her meticulous work and gentle demeanor, Anna was well liked by her clients and neighbors. Her violent death was a profound shock to her family and the community, marking the beginning of the city's ordeal with the Boston Strangler. At 85, Mary Mullen was a widow living in Roxbury. She was a beloved matriarch in her family, remembered for her kindness and wisdom. Her sudden death initially seemed like a natural end, but later suspicions linked her to the Strangler's series of attacks, adding a layer of tragedy to her passing. Nina Nichols, 68, was a physiotherapist who lived in Brighton. Her career was dedicated to helping others regain their mobility and strength. Her life was marked by compassion and service, making her untimely death all the more shocking to those who knew her. Helen Blake, a 65-year-old retiree, had spent her life working hard and was enjoying her later years in Dorchester. Her brutal end left her family devastated and her community in fear. Helen was remembered as a caring and generous neighbor, always willing to lend a hand. Ida Oeger, 75, lived in the historic Beacon Hill neighborhood. As a widow, she lived a quiet, dignified life. Her murder not only terrified her neighbors but also highlighted the vulnerability of elderly women living alone in the city. Jane Sullivan, 67, was a dedicated nurse in Dorchester. Her life was devoted to caring for others, making her violent death particularly poignant. Jane's murder was a stark reminder of the dangers that even those who serve and protect the community could face. Sophie Clark, 20, was a vibrant young student living in Back Bay. Her future was full of promise, cut tragically short by the Strangler. Her death marked a significant shift in the perceived target profile, spreading fear among younger women in the city. Patricia Bissett, 23, was an office worker known for her diligence and cheerful personality. Her murder on New Year's Eve underscored the unpredictability of the Strangler, and her loss was deeply felt by her colleagues and friends. Mary Brown, 69, lived in Lawrence. A lifelong resident, she was known for her strong community ties and friendly nature. Her death expanded the perceived reach of the Strangler, causing widespread alarm beyond Boston. Beverly Summons, 23, was a graduate student in Cambridge, deeply involved in her studies and community. Her violent death represented an escalation in the Strangler's brutality, shocking her peers and the academic community. Evelyn Corbin, 58, lived in Salem. She was known for her independence and resilience. Her death showed that the Strangler's terror was not confined to Boston, spreading fear throughout the region. Joan Graff, 23, was a resident of Lawrence. Her murder highlighted the ongoing danger and the inability to predict the Strangler's next move. Joan's community mourned the loss of a young woman with a bright future ahead of her. Mary Sullivan, 19, was the final confirmed victim of the Boston Strangler. Living in Beacon Hill, her youth and vitality made her murder all the more tragic. Her case marked the end of the known spree, but left the city grappling with the lasting impact of the Strangler's terror. There were several other women whose deaths during this period raised suspicions but lacked definitive links to the Boston Strangler. The similarity in modus operandi and the overlapping timeline suggest they might have been victims as well. Investigators have revisited these cases, applying modern forensic techniques to determine if they can be connected to the Strangler's pattern. Each potential victim adds another layer to the complex web of this case, highlighting the possible extent of the Strangler's reach. Survivor accounts provided critical insights into the Boston Strangler's methods and behaviors. Although few in number, these survivors offered invaluable information that helped shape the investigation. Their descriptions of the attacker's approach and tactics were crucial in developing a psychological profile and understanding his modus operandi. The bravery of these survivors in coming forward with their stories provided law enforcement with key details that might have otherwise remained unknown. Their accounts highlighted the Strangler's ability to gain the trust of his victims, often by posing as a benign figure. These insights were essential in piecing together the sequence of events and understanding the characteristics of the attacker, helping to keep the investigation focused and informed. The Boston Strangler's terrifying spree in the early 1960s left an indelible mark on popular culture, inspiring a plethora of books, films, and other media. This case has fascinated the public and storytellers alike, weaving its way into the fabric of American crime law. One of the earliest and most notable representations of the Boston Strangler in popular culture is the 1968 film The Boston Strangler, directed by Richard Fleischer and starring Tony Curtis as Albert DeSalvo. The film dramatizes the investigation and the psychological complexity of DeSalvo, blending fact with fiction to create a compelling narrative that captured the public's imagination. Curtis's portrayal of DeSalvo was chillingly effective, cementing the Strangler's image in the public consciousness. Numerous books have been written about the case, each offering different perspectives and insights. Gerald Frank's The Boston Strangler is one of the most comprehensive accounts, providing detailed descriptions of the murders, the investigation, and DeSalvo's life. This book, along with others, has kept the case alive in the minds of readers and has been a crucial resource for researchers and true crime enthusiasts. Television has also revisited the Strangler case multiple times. Documentaries and true crime series, such as Mystery Quest and Cold Case Files, have explored the mysteries and controversies surrounding the Boston Strangler. These programs often delve into new theories and forensic advancements, keeping the story relevant for new generations. The Boston Strangler case remains a focal point for true crime investigation due to its unresolved nature and the psychological complexity of the crimes. The combination of brutal violence, the vulnerability of the victims, and the elusiveness of the perpetrator creates a narrative that continues to captivate. This enduring fascination is partly driven by the human need to understand and rationalize evil. The Boston Strangler represents an enigma, a puzzle that challenges our comprehension of human behavior and the limits of investigative science. Each new theory or piece of evidence reignites public interest, as people are drawn to the hope that one day the full truth will be uncovered. The case also serves as a historical benchmark, illustrating the evolution of criminal investigation. It highlights the advancements in forensic science and law enforcement techniques, offering lessons and insights that have shaped modern approaches to solving serial crimes. The Boston Strangler case remains officially unsolved, though Albert DeSalvo's confession and subsequent DNA evidence linking him to Mary Sullivan's murder have provided some clarity. However, the lack of conclusive evidence tying him to all the murders continues to fuel debate and investigation. In recent years, advancements in forensic technology, particularly DNA analysis, have led to renewed efforts to solve the case. In 2013, DNA evidence conclusively linked DeSalvo to the murder of Mary Sullivan, one of the Strangler's last victims. This breakthrough provided some closure, but also raised new questions about the extent of DeSalvo's involvement. Investigators continue to re-examine old evidence using modern forensic techniques, hoping to find additional links that could solve the remaining mysteries. Cold case units and private investigators remain dedicated to uncovering new leads, ensuring that the search for answers continues. The Boston Strangler case significantly influenced law enforcement practices and the profiling of serial killers. The complexities of the investigation highlighted the need for more specialized approaches to handling serial crimes. One of the most profound impacts was the realization of the importance of crime scene preservation and forensic evidence. The contamination of many Strangler crime scenes by media and onlookers underscored the need for more stringent protocols to protect evidence. The case also emphasized the necessity of interagency collaboration. The coordination between local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies improved significantly, paving the way for more effective responses to future serial crimes. This collaboration became a model for handling complex investigations involving multiple jurisdictions. Additionally, the psychological profiling of serial killers saw significant advancements due to this case. The behavioral patterns observed in the Strangler's actions contributed to the development of criminal profiling techniques that are now standard practice in law enforcement. Profilers began to understand the importance of identifying consistent behaviors and psychological traits to predict and apprehend serial offenders. The Boston Strangler case shares notable similarities with other infamous serial killer cases, such as the Zodiac Killer and Jack the Ripper. Each of these cases has left a lasting impact on both the public and the field of criminal investigation. Both the Boston Strangler and Jack the Ripper targeted victims in urban settings, creating widespread fear and panic. Jack the Ripper's reign of terror in London's Whitechapel district in the late 1800s involved brutal murders of women, much like the Strangler's attacks. Both cases remain officially unsolved, with the true identities of the perpetrators still unknown, which has contributed to their legendary status in crime history. The Zodiac Killer, active in Northern California during the late 1960s and early 1970s, also shares similarities with the Boston Strangler. Both killers taunted the police and the public, although the Zodiac did so through cryptic letters and ciphers. The Zodiac's ability to evade capture, like the Strangler's, highlighted deficiencies in forensic and investigative techniques of the time. The investigative techniques used in these cases were reflective of their respective times. During the Boston Strangler spree, forensic science was still developing, and many investigative practices were rudimentary. The contamination of crime scenes and the reliance on eyewitness accounts were significant drawbacks. In contrast, the Zodiac Killer's era saw the beginning of more advanced forensic methods, but limitations still existed. The Zodiac's cryptic communications challenged investigators in unique ways, requiring expertise in cryptography and psychological profiling. Public reactions to these cases were similarly intense. Fear and paranoia gripped the affected communities, with people altering their behaviors to avoid becoming victims. The media played a crucial role in both cases, heightening public awareness and pressure on law enforcement to solve the crimes. Advancements in forensic science could have dramatically altered the course of the Boston Strangler investigation. Modern DNA profiling, which was unavailable at the time, could have provided definitive links between the murders and potential suspects. Improved crime scene preservation techniques would have ensured that critical evidence was not contaminated or lost. The use of computer databases for tracking suspects and identifying patterns across multiple jurisdictions would have enhanced the ability to connect disparate pieces of evidence. Additionally, modern psychological profiling techniques could have provided deeper insights into the strangler's behavior and motives, aiding in his identification and capture. The Boston Strangler's psychological profile is complex and multifaceted, reflecting deep-seated issues and aberrant behaviors. His methods and interactions with the victim suggest a profound need for control and dominance. The Strangler's choice of victims, primarily women living alone, indicates a deliberate targeting of individuals perceived as vulnerable. His ability to gain their trust by posing as a benign figure speaks to his manipulative skills and the premeditated nature of his attacks. The use of items from the victims' homes to commit the crimes, and the meticulous manner in which the scenes were arranged, point to a need for personal connection and control. This behavior suggests a perpetrator who derives psychological satisfaction from dominating and dehumanizing his victims. The Boston Strangler likely exhibited several mental health issues or personality disorders. The nature of his crimes suggests possible antisocial personality disorder, characterized by a lack of empathy, disregard for societal norms, and manipulative behavior. The ritualistic aspects of the murders indicate obsessive-compulsive tendencies, where the act of staging the crime scenes provided a sense of order and control. Additionally, the violent and degrading nature of the attacks points to deep-seated anger and resentment, possibly rooted in early trauma or significant psychological stressors. This combination of traits made the Strangler a highly dangerous individual, capable of extreme violence without remorse. While the Boston Strangler did not seek public attention through direct communication, his actions demonstrated a clear need for recognition and a sense of power. The meticulous staging of the crime scenes and the specific patterns of the attacks suggest an underlying desire to be noticed and feared. Albert DeSalvo's confession, whether entirely truthful or not, can also be seen as an attempt to gain recognition. His detailed admissions and willingness to discuss the crimes reflect a need to assert his identity as the Strangler, even if it meant accepting infamy over anonymity. The Boston Strangler's crimes had a profound and lasting impact on the communities affected. The sense of safety and security that residents once took for granted was shattered. Women, in particular, felt the brunt of this fear, altering their daily routines to avoid potential danger. Neighborhoods that were once close-knit and trusting became more insular and suspicious. Community events and social activities saw reduced participation as people preferred the safety of their homes. The collective anxiety led to a surge in home security measures and a heightened state of alertness. The investigation into the Boston Strangler's crimes required coordination between various law enforcement agencies. Local police departments, the Massachusetts State Police, and the FBI all played crucial roles in the response efforts. However, the lack of clear communication and coordination initially hampered the investigation. Over time, the agencies recognized the need for better collaboration. They began to share information more effectively, pooling resources and expertise to track down leads and analyze evidence. This improved coordination became a model for future multi-jurisdictional investigations, highlighting the importance of teamwork in solving complex cases. The Boston Strangler case led to significant changes in law enforcement policies and practices. The importance of crime scene preservation became evident, prompting the development of more stringent protocols to protect evidence. The need for specialized training in handling serial crimes and the use of forensic science became a priority. The case also underscored the value of psychological profiling in understanding and predicting criminal behavior. Law enforcement agencies began to invest in training officers in profiling techniques, leading to more accurate assessments of suspects and more effective investigative strategies. The Boston Strangler's legacy extends beyond the immediate fear and tragedy of his crimes. His impact on popular culture, law enforcement practices, and forensic science continues to be felt today. The enduring mystery of the case, coupled with the advancements in investigative techniques, ensures that the story of the Boston Strangler remains a poignant chapter in the annals of criminal history. Now it's time to slowly drift into sleep. Close your eyes, let go, and allow sleep to gently carry you away into a night of sweet dreams and restful slumber.